Greetings. Welcome, Sharp Squares newbies. We're back after a little 10-day hiatus. It's the Parleh Sports Betting Show. I'm Jorey Middlestadt. He's Harley Redlick, the pro. Vegas never be the same after his visit this weekend, which we'll talk about in a moment. But welcome to the show. As I said, we did our March Madness special, and now you can just spit and use my bracket to shine your shoes. I think that goes for a lot of people, even though the upsets haven't been as crazy as you might think now that we're getting towards the Elite Eight. We will talk about March Madness, both on the men's and the ladies' side. We will look at the NHL Futures this week, post-trade deadline. It was a pretty active trade deadline, although the actual trade deadline day was a lot of more insignificant deals. The heavy lifting really took place in the week and sort of in the 7 days leading up to the trade deadline. I'll hopefully have some winning Miami Open and Dell match play golf picks for you, as a couple of big tourneys, both the men and the women in Miami after Indian Wells last week, which was a really fun tournament to watch. And there's actually two PGA Tour events this week, but the Dell match play is the biggest, as it's the top 64 in the world, although there are a couple of notable absences. We'll also answer a listener question for, I think, the second time. We got a good one this week. It's actually from a couple weeks ago. We missed it, but we're going to get to that as well. And along those lines, we want to hear from you. Questions@theparleh.com is where you can email us a question. You can reach out to either one of us on Twitter @JoreyMiddle, @SharpEdgePicks for Harley. If you're watching us on video, they're up on your screen. I'm not going to spell my name this time, but I will. It's Jorey, because everybody screws it up. I've gone through my entire life with people not knowing how to spell my name. I can thank my mother for that.
You got to blame your parents for that one, Jorey.
I said I'm blaming my mother
instead of everybody else for spelling it wrong.
Yeah. No, I do. That's where the blame clearly lies, and she takes credit for coming up with the name, so she gets the blame. Also, we want as I was saying, we want your email questions. You can reach out to us on Twitter, but we want your questions, comments, feedbacks. Tell us we're full of shit and don't know what we're talking about, and we'll address it. Any and all of those things are welcome, so please do so. We're not going to have a betting concept this week, but we will next week. And for those wondering why we're not talking about the NFL this week, we discussed it very briefly, but there's still some major moves to be made, especially with quarterbacks. I'm talking about you, Baker Mayfield. Where's he going to end up? And so we're going to let a little more shake out before we take a look at NFL futures. But man, in the midst of everything, right, Harley, the NFL still rules the day. Like, the last couple of weeks have been insane. With the quarterback movement, big trades, wide receivers. I mean, it's just been nutso. And we will get to the NFL probably next week. And we'll probably be talking a lot about baseball next week, right? As the season gets going on April the 7th is opening day. So just around the corner, we're going to have to look at some futures and start talking about baseball, which is welcome. Especially when you consider that, you get to the end of June and, all the other three major pro sports anyway drop off. Here's a quick question before we talk about our gambling story of the week, which is really Harley's trip to Vegas. Are you an MLS fan / bettor? Major League Soccer?
I am somewhat. I don't give it as much love as the four major North American sports. I follow it a little bit. I bet it a little bit with ebbs and flows. My pet peeve with soccer is the flopping and how much a single play can impact a game. I'm talking about Canada's travesty last night.
We saw it last night. Yep.
A flop, a yellow card that turned into a red. I mean,
well, the first yellow, the first yellow, we're talking about K on Canada. The first yellow, I know we're getting a little off topic, but hey, it's our show. The first yellow was totally warranted and was on the borderline of a red. And I don't want to sit here and tell you that I'm a soccer aficionado and have enough base of knowledge to actually determine if that was a yellow or a red. It was definitely a yellow. I mean, I've watched enough soccer to say that. Whether or not it met the criteria or the standard for a red, the first foul I'm talking about, I'm not so sure. But K made a big mistake, right? By giving him a little shoulder bump. No.
I mean,
right? He made a judgment. He made a bad judgment.
If he doesn't fall, it's not a foul. So
Agreed. It was a dumbass dive. There's no question about it.
Flopping is back to being encouraged. Acting like babies is back to being encouraged. They need replay. They need to figure this stuff out. The whole concepts in soccer. A ball inadvertently hits your hand in the box and you get a penalty kick. Like, the penalties in soccer are ridiculous. The rules need to be fixed. The penalty shot needs to be moved back like double. It can't be an 80% shot. Just the rules don't. I think there's a ceiling to how far it can work in North America with kind of our perception of fairness versus other places in the world that just accept the game from birth. And we have to adopt the game with some rules that need significant changes.
I would heartily agree with that. And it was disappointing result for Canada last night at Costa Rica. Man, they could have what? Did you watch any of the game?
Yeah, I watched. I mean, the crossbar was insane.
And then the post later, right? Yeah, like they were dominating the second half with 10 guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the other. I mean, a 1-0 lead in soccer. Remember the boring hockey in around the year 2000 where, like, the New Jersey Devils would win hockey playoff games 1-0 with the neutral zone trap?
The trap. You heard. I was going to say the trap and obstruction. Yeah, although obstruction wasn't as bad.
You put in a box. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Canada still, I mean, barring something crazy, still going to qualify for the World Cup. Italy will not for the second straight time, which is just nutso to consider. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole at the moment. We will, of course, be talking about the World Cup, as it's not that far off in the horizon. Anyway,
I want to go.
You want to go to Qatar? Or Qatar, or however you want to pronounce it.
I want to be there. I mean, I'm not dying. Like, Qatar's not number one on my list of places I need to see, although I've never kind of been to the Persian Gulf, so that would be kind of cool. But I would love to be at Canada's first World Cup game. And I mean, I guess they qualified once when I was like
86. Yeah.
Oh, 86. It's funny. Yeah. I don't even remember that. And I was 11. It goes to show you. And I clearly remember in 85, George Bell getting down on one knee when the Jays clinched. So I don't know what was going on in the 80s, but I got to tell you that I think the Blue Jays were a much bigger story than Team Canada in soccer qualifying.
Yeah, you didn't miss much. They didn't manage to score a goal. So
that's kind of not a good result. I'm trying to see if I can find.
It was 80. Yeah. In any case, let's get to the actual program here.
Okay.
And our gambling story of the week is Harley hit Vegas. He was there last weekend for the opening weekend of the tournament. And it's a big time weekend in Vegas, as we talked about going in. I'm going to guess, like, this is the first one, right? There was 2 years of there was no tournament. Then no fans last year, and it didn't quite have the same cachet, and Vegas wasn't fully operational as it is now. So I'm going to guess there were a lot of young people with a lot of pent up, raring to go in Vegas this weekend. And I do want to talk about it from a sports betting perspective and a gambling perspective in general. But over, the 360-degree view of first tournament weekend in Vegas was what?
Vegas was the busiest I've ever seen it. One additional note, it's March break. That adds to the quote unquote madness on top of March Madness. I would say, of course, there was a disproportionately high number of dudes in their 20s and 30s sporting Wolverine hats and Illinois t-shirts and stuff like that. Lineups at restaurants. You couldn't get a seat at a sports book without a VIP card. The prices for restaurants, beers, I mean, would make the artist formerly known as the ACC blush. I went to a Vegas Knights game. A Vegas
did
Knights
you?
game.
You went to a hockey game?
Yeah,
Nice.
and a tall beer is $17 US. I mean, ACC could raise their prices and still not get to that. So I mean, it's an expensive proposition to go to Vegas and enjoy. I was very disappointed with kind of the main casinos on the strip in terms of how badly they're gouging players now.
I want to talk about that. That's like, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm not a big casino gambler locally or short trip, right? There's lots of options. I'm not, leaving COVID aside for the moment, right? Because, none of us have done shit for 2 years in that regard. And so for me, if I'm going to go casino gambling, like I like to make a trip, maybe if I've gone to the Caribbean, which I've done a few times, but to go on a real, vacation gambling trip, Vegas is been the place. I've been to Vegas so many times, both vacation, business related. I mean, I've stayed in almost all the nice hotels and even some not so nice. And that's where I like to go if I'm going to, gamble and spend some time at tables. And it was funny. So you were posting on Twitter during your trip. You were aghast at what you were seeing at a roulette table. Then you went to a blackjack table and saw that. And I just want to point out that I was in Vegas. The last time I was there was in February of 19. And I don't know about the thing that you're going to tell us about roulette, but blackjack at that point in time, about half the casinos had gone to paying 6-5 on blackjack. And for those who don't know, normally when you hit blackjack, you get paid 3-2 odds. And I was literally like, I was so taken aback, and I started asking the dealer. I happened to be at an MGM property. And if you don't know what's happened in Vegas, there's been a ton of consolidation. There's really like 2 groups own the majority of the properties, with a couple of exceptions. And so you can go, like MGM owns, I don't know how many now, 9-10 properties in Vegas. And they had all gone.
We'll get into that issue when I talk about the sports books there. There's
okay.
On the south end of the strip, there's only 2 sports books because of the consolidation. I mean, it doesn't matter if you walk into New York, or MGM or Aria or Cosmo. We'll get into it. They're all owned by the same guys. So there's just 2 sports books.
So at the time, I said to the dealer, I'm like, is it 6-5 everywhere now? He said, well, all the MGM properties, but within a couple months, it'll be everywhere. Yeah, you guys are screwed kind of thing, being the player. And that really ticked me off, frankly. Like, really? The odds are already in your favor and by a pretty good margin. And when you look at the money that the casinos make, because that, at least in Vegas, right, that's public information. Blackjack's always near the top. I mean, slots are always first. But, oh, man, like, I was pissed off.
Listen, it's just math. It's floor space. They're owned by private equity firms. There's no long-term thing. It's just gouge customers to the max in the short term. How much money can you take off of them? The truth is, when I sat down at the table, I saw a guy get paid 6-5 on blackjack. I'm like, what is this? And they're like, blackjack here pays 6-5. I looked at the other players on the table. They had no clue blackjack paid 6-5. They kind of knew that historically it paid 3-2, so it was bad. I got up from the table and they kind of hesitated almost because they felt like fools that I got up. But if I wouldn't have made a stink, they wouldn't have cared. And I'm picking on Aria because I stayed there, so I took the pictures from Aria. But most of the properties, it's pretty universal. It's pretty similar across the board. And I know you don't like math, Jorey, but I had to do the math just to give you guys an example. So you get blackjack 5% of the time. So 1 out of 20 hands is blackjack. And now you're getting $120, not $150 for the blackjack if you bet $100 on a bet. So it's costing you $30, right? Because you get paid $120 on your 100, not $150 on a $100 bet every 20 hands. There's like 65 hands a shoe. So it's costing you $100 or a bet a shoe It's very costly. Forget about what you play. It's costing you an average bet per shoe. So if you play 4 shoes on a trip, which is not a lot to play a
No.
lousy 4 shoes on a trip. If you're a blackjack player, you play way more than that. And you're a $25 bettor, it's costing you $100 more than it used to do. So, and if you're an 8, 10, 15 shoe guy, I mean, you're drawing absolutely dead. Same with roulette.
Yeah.
Well,
before you get to roulette, and I don't know if you noticed this, but at most of the casinos, there's no shoes anymore. Or they may have a couple tables, but it's all automatic shuffle.
Correct. So they're just firing out hands. I mean, listen, it's Vegas. It's not a cruise. I've been on cruises where they don't spread cards, where I would bet my life that they take 10s out of the deck and aces, but it's that I'm not in no way, shape, or form accusing Vegas of something like that. They're not doing it to slant the cards in your favor. They're doing it so there's no chance you count cards and there's no dead time in between shoes. It used to be, when did you get up from the table? After every shoe, you'd evaluate how you're doing. Now there's no time to evaluate. You just play till you have no more money. They figured out the
you were saying
formula.
and you were saying about roulette?
Yeah. Roulette?
Sorry. Yeah, so you were saying roulette, right? 3 zeros?
Now there's 3 zeros. So I don't know if you remember, back in the day, especially in Europe, there were places in Montreal, there was only a single zero. Vegas standard was 2 zeros. For people who don't know, the zeros are the house edge. That's in essence their juice, because if you look at a simple red-black bet, there's 18 red spots and 18 black spots. And then if there's 1 green spot, that's their juice. If there's 2 greens, it's when they land on the greens that you get screwed.
Right.
The odds of hitting red went from 18 out of 38 to 18 out of 39, or from 47.4% to 46.1%. It's 1.5% per spin, flush down the drain. Again, every 65 spins of the wheel, you're losing a bet. So if your average bet on red black was $25, if you play 65 spins, you're just giving them an extra $25. They're basically grinding guys down further. The truth is, they're not trying to build up sustainable gamblers. The mentality they want is they don't want a player like me. They don't want a sharp guy. They just want casual guys who are going with $200 of gambling money. And now the goal is just to take the money as quickly as possible and then move them to the shops, move them to the overpriced restaurants, etc., and move on with their life. It's not about a kind of competitive edge or a competitive game. It's take the money as quickly as possible.
All the more reason why you should become a sports bettor. A responsible one, but a sports bettor. Let's wrap up your trip to Vegas. You did want to talk about kind of the lack of, shall we say, betting options when it comes to the sports books because of the consolidation. I will add to that, both on the table game, like the casino part, and sports books, you can shop around in Vegas, right? You can go downtown. There are smaller casinos if you're going to spend the time. But if you're going there on vacation, staying in one of the big hotels, you're not going to get a lot of options. And most people are not going to spend the time and go to, one of the little station casinos or something like that, right?
No. So if you do want a sports book options and you want to line shop a bunch of spots, you got to stick to the north side of the strip. If you're on the south side of the strip, there's very little line shopping and there's no competition. BetMGM owns Bellagio, New York, Aria, Mirage, Cosmo, MGM, and Mandalay. Caesars has Caesars, Bally's, Paris, Harrah's, Planet Hollywood, and Flamingo. So if you picture the south side of the strip, I mean, you literally got to walk a mile to get anything except for BetMGM or Caesars lines. On the north side, you got Cantor, who runs Venetian. You got Wynn that runs WynnBET. The Treasure Island is independently run. And then if you hit Bellagio or Caesars in the middle of the strip, you get an MGM and a Caesars property. So you got a lot more choice on the north side of the strip. I want to point out downtown has Circa. It's a ridiculously huge sports book. Visson is broadcasting live right next door. They post their limits, which is a great habit that almost nobody does. So they don't single out. They encourage or allow professional gamblers in to allow for liquidity. They're not just taking big bets from kids or irresponsible gambling. They do a great job there at Circa. Again, if you want to go downtown, they got this huge pool with like 20 screens. It's an unbelievable viewing experience. I mean, you got to be very careful if you walk outside downtown on the strip. I mean, I was there in the middle of the day on a Monday, and I wouldn't want to be there at night with a bundle of cash. You got to be more careful. I mean,
Really? Because
yeah.
they've cleaned it up a bunch, at least the last time I was there, but I haven't been there, in over 3 years in downtown. I think it might be 4, and they have cleaned it up, but you're saying not as much as maybe.
I mean, it's not a. You could walk down the strip or most casinos without worrying to the extent that you worry about downtown. And I mean, maybe it's part of the character and the flair. To me, it was a little bit much.
All right. Vegas survived Harley. Harley survived Vegas. Unfortunately, Harley did not have a winning week last week. We always like to recap the picks. And I think it's only the second time that you haven't been a winner on this show. They were all March Madness plays from the first round, 4 money line dogs, all at plus 110. You went 1-3. Your winner was Texas over Virginia Tech. The one where you might have thought differently about the money line dog was Davidson, right? Losing to Michigan State by 1, and they were a 1.5 point dog if you'd gone point spread there, but you went money line for a reason, right? You split you're a winner. Colorado State lost to Michigan, who is now gone as well. And Marquette got beat up pretty bad by North Carolina, who then went on and beat a number 1 seed in Baylor in the second round. So any quick thoughts on your picks?
Not really. Texas crushed. Marquette got crushed. Colorado State was up good on Michigan and lost. Davidson and Michigan State played a close game. I mean, I'm a big fan of evaluating my bets kind of neutrally in hindsight. When I had one clear winner, one clear loser, and 2 toss-ups getting slight plus money, I'm in the right wheelhouse. Sometimes you catch the break, sometimes you don't. I didn't get too high or excited the weeks where I went 3-1 and 4-0 betting 2-1 NBA dogs, and I don't get that fussed when I have losing weeks.
All right. We're hoping you're going to come back with a winning week this time around.
Well,
and along those lines, along those lines, I know, there's got to be very few brackets that have done extremely well, but depending on what happens tonight with 4 more games to round out the Elite 8, 3 of the number 1 seeds are gone, and the 4th is in action tonight in Kansas. But in one region, you've got the 2 and the 4 in the Elite 8. In the other, you've got 2 and 5. There will be a double-digit seed in the Elite 8 because Iowa State and Miami are playing off there at 10 and 11. But, okay, so let's stay there with the men's because I know you have a ladies pick, and we haven't talked a lot about the ladies tournament. So do you have a pick for tonight, or are you already looking ahead to Saturday for the 2 Elite 8 games?
On the men's side, I got a value bet for tonight. I like Iowa State plus 125 over the Hurricanes. I think the line's a tad off. It's purely an overreaction to Miami looking awesome, crushing Auburn. I think both teams are ranked middle of the pack, very little differentiation. In fact, after round 1, when Iowa State looked a little bit better beating LSU than Miami did versus USC, I think Iowa State might have been the favorite, especially because they ranked a little better on Ken Palm. They play in a little bit of a better division in the Big 12. But Iowa State's the dog purely as an overreaction to that hot half and the Canes looked awesome against Auburn, but Iowa State looked very good against Wisconsin. I think the line's a little mispriced. Again, this is no different than that Michigan State Davidson. Getting 2 to 2.5 points obviously wins more often. But when I like a small dog, I usually just believe in them. I take them to win with confidence. I like Iowa State plus 125.
Anything else on the men's side?
No. The Elite 8, if we want to talk about it, Houston is 2.5 points over Nova. That's the 5 after just beating the 1 seed. There might be an overreaction there. I would eye Villanova if I had to bet something. I'll see where that line moves and where it closes and what the reaction is. If people get too overly excited on Houston, who I think is a very good team, They're playing that Jay Wright, well-coached Nova team, and I would gladly take Villanova if I got enough money. Michigan, Duke is a 4-point favorite over Arkansas. That line's about right. I mean, Duke's the better team. Arkansas is just coming off that huge win off the Zags. I mean, they definitely look more impressive. Duke didn't look great. I mean,
no, they just had a real spurt late. That was
I
the
like
difference.
Texas Tech. I was a little bit sick about that result. I mean, to me, that whole game laid down. There was a 2-point. Texas Tech had a 2-point lead. Shot clock was winding down. Banchero created his own 3 and hit it. If he misses and Texas Tech has the ball up 2 with 2 minutes to go, they're probably 75-80% to win. Kudos to Duke. I don't think they missed in their last 8 shots from the field. So
they made their last 8 shots.
It took that to barely beat Texas Tech. So
and hit their free throws too down the stretch.
Correct. So I mean, the games should look good. I mean, the games in the first couple of rounds were mediocre. Last night's games were a little more exciting as the tournament progresses. I'm looking forward to the games tonight and this weekend. But my only value bet as of now on the men's side is Iowa State.
Last thought before we get to the ladies, and I was really impressed by Arkansas. Eric Musselman has always been a pretty good coach. They have good sort of size at the guard spot, right? They really hassled Nembhard, the fine Canadian kid, the point guard for Gonzaga, all night. They had a really good game plan going at Chet Holmgren, right? The big string bean for Gonzaga, and they fouled him out early. So I think that's going to be a really interesting game. I agree. I think the line's about right. And again, I'm no expert on college basketball. I'm going just on the most recent eye test because this is the most college basketball I've watched all year. But I was very impressed, and I caught a little bit of Arkansas's first couple games. They've impressed me. I think they're going to give Duke everything they can handle in the Elite 8 on Saturday. All right. So first look at the women's tournament for us. And I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't really watched any. I actually watched a few minutes of South Carolina, right? Who's the number 1 overall seed. I saw just a little bit of one of their games. But you got to play, don't you? Is it for tonight or tomorrow?
It's actually for tomorrow. They run 1-day lag. So their Sweet 16 matchups are today and tomorrow. I like NC State on the women's side versus Notre Dame. It's a bet purely against Notre Dame. So NC State is a leading team. They're a top 5 rated team. They're an 8.5-point favorite. They're the 4th favorite to win it all. It's a bet against Notre Dame. Last game, the Irish were a 2.5-point dog versus Oklahoma. Okay, so picture a 2.5-point dog in a relatively close game. The final score was 108-64. That's insane. The Irish had the game of their life. Like, who's ever seen a 2.5-point dog win by 42 and annihilate an opponent?
That is weird.
It's just a sniff test bet. It just smells rotten, like the Irish overperformed and peaked. You know, I don't like laying 8.5 points very often. I locked them in at 8 on the video on the parlay, and now I think they're up to 8.5. But I mean, they're just a vastly superior team playing a team who's coming off the game of their life. It's just a tough spot. They're playing up in competition. It's a bet against Notre Dame, and NC State's the better team. And NC State's been doing what they're supposed to be doing so far. They've been double-digit favorites, and they keep crushing, and they look good. So I like that play.
By the way, before we get off the tournament on both sides, men's and ladies, how's your bracket looking? Is it remotely like, or is it just, there's lots of holes from the darts?
Well, my bracket got busted because I like Texas Tech to win it all.
Texas Tech, right.
And it's funny because I stand by my pick. I thought they were the better team last night for most of the game against Duke. And obviously I caught a break as Duke caught a break because because Texas Tech would have been a 4-point favorite or so to Arkansas instead of having to be a dog to Gonzaga. So it's unfortunate they caught that break. And if Texas Tech would have held on, my bracket and I would have been in phenomenal shape. But such is the bounces and such is the game.
Okay, yeah, mine's completely imploded. Again, the only thing I really have left is UCLA. I had them going to the final, so I'll root on the Bruins to, I guess, save some bracket face if that's a thing. All right, let's move over to the NHL. Trade deadline was kind of, you know, I wouldn't say it was vanilla. There were some big deals. Again, not as many of them on trade deadline day, but there was definitely an arms race in the Atlantic, right? With Florida, Tampa, the Leafs, and Boston all making moves. And clearly, Florida and Tampa are in go for it mode. And Boston to a certain extent as well, right? I mean, they moved some serious draft capital to get Lindholm. So we wanted to just take a look at the future market now that the trade deadline is behind us. You know what the teams look like. Some of the odds have changed since our last look quite a bit. Like Calgary has really moved up in terms of their odds to win it all. And it's going to be really interesting because, I mean, you got four of the top, 9 teams in the league in one division, right? The Atlantic, Panthers, Lightning, Leafs, and Bruins. They might just kick the crap out of each other and won't have anything left for whoever comes out of that division. But as we've talked about before, when we're looking at futures, I mean, whenever I'm placing a future bet, I can't ever remember a time where I actually put money on one of the top 4 or even 5 favorites, because I don't think there's any value when you're tying your money up, and we've talked about that. You told me you made a bet, an NHL future bet when you were in Vegas, so I'll let you go first. What do you like? Is there any value, and or how many plays would you make at this point on the NHL future docket?
So the only play I made was the LA Kings at 24-1 to go to the Cup. I put a pretty big bet on them in Vegas to win about 30.
Where did you get that line?
24
That's
to 1
to win the West?
To win the West. Yeah.
24. I was looking last night and this morning, they're 22-1 to win the Cup.
Well, that's an amazing. That's why you line shop. That's why you line shop. That's why you're a value better. That's why you bet at Circa Sports and not on Bet365, who takes 50% juice on futures and nobody knows the difference. That's why you do it. So I got him at 24-1 to win the West. I thought the line was off. I mean, obviously 22-1 to win the Cup is also a rip-off odds. The line is probably somewhere in between. I like the Kings for a couple reasons. They play in that weak division. I don't trust Calgary, obviously, the way I would trust a Colorado or a Florida or a Tampa or a Carolina or anybody that strong. As of now, they're the 2 seed. They would host Edmonton or maybe Vegas if they overtake them. Again, then comes Calgary. They'd be a huge dog to the Avalanche, but that's in the 3rd round. So hopefully someone like St. Louis, Minnesota, Nashville upsets Colorado, and then they get gassed for my Kings to beat them. I like that path at 24-1, and that's why they're my value bet. In general, when you look at the odds board, if you're asking who made big deals at the trade deadline, the answer is the Minnesota Wild, who went up to 16-1 from the odds I saw, putting them in the solid 2nd tier with teams like the Leafs and the Bruins and the Penguins and the Rangers, which is good for them. Obviously, that Marc-Andre Fleury was a big addition. Florida was the big move. Getting Giroux jumped them from, they used to be a co-East Conference contender lead with Tampa and Carolina. They're now the clear front runner. They're the 2nd favorite to win the Cup.
Yep.
Calgary's the 3rd favorite, purely as a function of, like I said, with the Kings. If you look at the 4 divisions, one of them has Colorado. Both divisions in the East are very strong. And that West Division, Vegas is a disappointment. Edmonton's never anything special. I mean, I like the Kings, but nobody's scared to play them. So Calgary by default's got an easy road.
Yeah, I think to your point, the value's probably in the West where you get to the 2nd tier, because Colorado, right? They have not shown that they're they have not shown that they have playoff mettle yet. I mean, they have a tremendous team and for sure the best team in the West, but we all know that doesn't translate into getting to the cup and or winning the cup. So Minnesota, I had when I looked the line I was looking at last night and this morning had them at 16-1. And
Mhm.
that was one that I circled out of the West as probably a value play because aside from Colorado, I think it's pretty wide open in the West. And I like your thought process there with the Kings as well.
So let
Anything else you wanted to add to hockey,
I have
hockey
nothing else.
wise?
I have nothing else to add to hockey. I did want to make sure I see the next thing on our schedule is Miami Open. When I
Yes.
see the phrase Miami Open, I think it means Miami's open for business and socializing and enjoying life versus the rest of North America that's closed. I'm Dell Match Play. I'm guessing Dell Match Play is golf's Miami Open sounds like tennis. So
That
I'm
is
assuming you've
correct.
got some tennis analysis for us with the Miami Open and then some Dell Match Play golf analysis for us. And then I can answer some questions.
Yes, we have one question in particular that we want to spend some time answering and discussing. But yes, Miami Open is tennis. For those not as familiar, and people, at least in Canada, right? You can listen to this anywhere, but we're Canadian. We don't hide the fact that we are, and we're based in Toronto. But for those who don't follow tennis, and the point I was trying to make is you should be following tennis because we're good at it now. And we have multiple people that are a factor to win tournaments and hopefully win a major at some point. I mean, we had Bianca, Andreescu win the US Open in 2019 and Leylah Fernandez get to the final a year ago. Although both finalists in last year's women's US Open are looking to be, I don't want to say one hit wonders, but the results have been rather lacking since, especially the winner, Raducanu, right? I mean,
And,
she's got a lot of endorsements, but not a lot of wins since
and
she won the
didn't
US Open.
didn't one of the superstars just retire out of nowhere, super young?
Ash Barty, the number one player in the world, won the last Grand Slam in Australia back in January, retired about 3-4 days ago at the
Why?
age of 25 and number
Enough
one in the world and a
enough
solid number one.
enough money and just had enough playing
Yeah,
tennis or
she's always been a little bit different that way. Like she was a top junior. She left the sport. She actually quit at around age, I think 19 or 20, somewhere in that vicinity. And went and played high-level cricket for a year and then came back, started climbing the rankings again, got to number one. She's 25 years old. She's recently married. And she said she just doesn't want to do it anymore. She wants to go enjoy her life and have a family. And she's made enough money. Apparently, she's made, I think I looked it up. I think she's made around 24 million in prize money. Not a ton in endorsements. She's was not, Osaka's the endorsement queen. And
Mhm.
prior to her, Serena, who continues to be, and Sharapova. But yeah, she just decided to enough. And so all the power to her, and that's going to change the balance of power in women's tennis at the moment. So the the Miami Open is one of the 1,000 level tournaments, which is basically the next level below the Grand Slams on both the men's and the ladies tour. We're coming off. This is the time of year where there's the opening of the real hard court season, and they have the back-to-back big draw 1,000 level tournaments where both the men's and ladies play together at the same venue. They just finished up Indian Wells, which was a fun tournament to watch if you're a tennis fan. I don't have time to really break it all down for you.
That's the
But
one where fans are allowed to yell or something like that, and now
no,
players
no,
are
no, no,
being
no, no,
upset
no,
or no?
no, no, no. You're thinking of the Waste Management Open in golf.
Okay, what did I read? What were fans also yelling at Indian Wells and a couple of players got upset or started talking back, or
Well,
was that something else?
no, Naomi Osaka had a bit of a meltdown when she got heckled by a fan in her first match, first or second match. I can't remember if it was first or second round, but yeah, she didn't take too kindly to it and address the crowd. And that's another, again, I don't know we want to go there, but the point
Fan
is, no, it's no different than any other tournament in terms of the rules. but it got some attention because a fan heckled Osaka and she broke down and didn't like it.
No, cool. So the fans now just pay money and have to shut the fuck up. Okay, got it. We should just put that clearly on the ticket.
During play.
Thank you for your money. Don't talk. What about other sports? Can we still heckle in hockey and basketball?
Yeah. Oh no, you can heckle. The fan wasn't ejected, even though Osaka wanted the fan ejected. And again, I don't want to shit all over Osaka. She's clearly had some major mental health issues. So I because a lot of people are just telling her to toughen up, and how would she survive in a baseball stadium, right? Or a football stadium or something like that? Well, different sports, different rules, different etiquette. I don't have a problem with some heckling as a tennis fan, right? Like, you're a pro, there's fans, they pay their money within reason. It's well within the boundaries of what you should be allowed to do. In any case, I do have a couple picks for you. All right, Harley,
Okay.
and my tennis picks have been pretty good.
Tell our listeners how to make some money betting tennis.
So I've got 3 today. Let me see. 2 on the men's side, 1 on the women's side, right? We want to go equal opportunity here. If you're not a big tennis fan, you may know who Nick Kyrgios is. You know who Nick Kyrgios is? Harley?
Sounds like a name. No, Nick Kyrgios used to be a hockey player.
No,
I think he's an
not
announcer now
Nick.
on Sportsnet.
No. Nick Kyrgios, even a lot of very casual fans know who Nick Kyrgios is. He's Australian.
Is he the guy with the attitude all the time?
Yes,
and throws balls and stuff. Yeah.
Well, no, he's supremely talented, extremely entertaining to watch. He interacts with the crowd. He had almost a real unfortunate situation at Indian Wells when he lost to Nadal and kind of smashed his racket, and it took a funny bounce and almost took out a ball boy, which is not kosher, people. And he was lucky there and could have had real punishment. In any case, he's been playing some good tennis. He likes the speed of these hard courts in Miami. He had a good run at Indian Wells before he lost a tight one to Rafa Nadal in the quarters. And he's playing one of the hotter guys right now on tour, in Andrei Rublev, who's the number 7 player in the world, who got to the semis last week at Indian Wells and has also been on a good run of late. But I think a lot of tennis of late might start to catch up to Rublev. And the thing with Kyrgios, I watched his match the other night. He is serving. He's got one of the best serves in the game, Harley. And he is serving right now, lights out, making it extremely hard for him to get broken. He is an underdog, as he should be. But I think there's some value in taking Nick Kyrgios today against Andrei Rublev at plus 137.
Okay.
Right? So there's a dog.
Down.
Kyrgios plus 137. On the women's side, there was a match that caught my eye. That is Katarina Alexandrova against Victoria the Grunter Azarenka. I don't know if you've ever seen Azarenka. She's one of the loud grunters on tour.
I think I met her at an airport one time. My wife is a big tennis fan. She would probably either be like, yes, that story's true, or no, you idiot, that was so-and-so, in which case, my bad, but I might have met her. Anyway,
I'm a fan of Azarenka just from a personal standpoint. She's really engaging and always gives very thoughtful interviews, and she's a really good player. She's won a couple slams, but she's getting towards the back 9 of her career. She also had a bit of a mental issue, a bit of a breakdown last week at Indian Wells. She hasn't really played well of late, and Alexandrova is a real solid player who rarely beats herself. Azarenka is the higher ranked player, and I think this is a really good spot for Alexandrova, given the reasons I just cited. She's a plus 250 dog, which I think is inflated. And so I think there's real value in taking Katarina Alexandrova today to take out Azarenka at plus 250. And then my sort of long shot play of the day, the big dog, where if I'm not going to bet it, but if I was going to, I might just put a little bit because of the value. And that is Borna Coric taking on the 3 seed Alexander Zverev. Zverev flamed out last week in Indian Wells. He has not he's not looked good since he had that meltdown in Acapulco. I don't even know if we talked about that, where he was banging his racket against the umpire's chair, and he's on like double secret probation now. Like if he does anything wrong, he's looking at a very lengthy suspension. I'm talking behavior wise. Coric is a former top 20 player who's been injured for most of the last year. And I think his real first tournament back was last week in Indian Wells. He won a match. So here's a former top 20 player making his way back from a pretty serious injury, but he's a plus 450 dog in a match that he can win against a guy, like I said, Zverev, who's not really all there right now. And I think his emotions are not where they should be because of this potential suspension that's hanging over him. And he's a guy that has a temper. Now he's going to sort of hold that in. And traditionally he gets mad and sometimes it helps him play better. This time he's really got to watch himself. So as a long dog, I like Mr. Coric to take out Zverev at plus 450. Again, maybe a little small value play there.
Cool. What about golf? Don't match play. You got anything for us?
So for golf fans, this is one of these unique events, right? On the PGA Tour, it's not a 4-round stroke event, right? This is match play, right? It's head to head, hole by hole. And it's a fun course for it too in Austin, Texas. It's been there now for, I don't know, at least 5, 6, 7 years. I was looking at the futures. The problem with the futures is so much is going to be decided today. For those who are unfamiliar, the format is there's 16 groups of 4, right? The draw is 64 guys, 16 groups of 4. Only the group winners advance to the round of 16, and then it's elimination. And they'll play 2 rounds tomorrow and 2 rounds on Sunday. So all the groups are being decided today. There's a couple groups that actually have been decided. You have to win your group. And what's really cool, Harley, is if there's a tie, right? You could have 2 guys at 2 and 1. You can draw a match, right? You can actually tie your match.
Yeah.
So there could be a 3-way tie for the top of the group, and they go sudden death playoff to decide the winner of the group, which is kind of cool. In any case, I had 3 matches that I looked at that I like for today. I'm going to leave the futures aside. And that is as follows. The one that's about to tee off in about an hour is Matt Fitzpatrick taking on Scotty Scheffler. Fitzpatrick's a slight dog at plus 105.
Mm-hmm.
He loves the match play format. He's been in pretty good form. I've even heard him say he likes this course. And Scheffler has been playing really well, right? He won a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago at Bay Hill. He's played a ton of golf the last month, and I think it's catching up with him. So I like Fitzpatrick at plus 105 over Scotty Scheffler. 2 others that I like. Taylor Gooch, great name. I mean, it's not Maverick McNeely good, but it's still a good name. Taylor Gooch is basically even money. They're both minus 105. He's going up against Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know if I know you haven't, but some of our listeners might have watched some of the golf so far this week. So DeChambeau hasn't played for 6 weeks, coming off wrist and hip injuries, if I'm not mistaken. I know there's 2 injuries, and he hasn't played much. He has been hitting it all over the property in the first 2 matches. Like, he literally has no idea where the ball's going. Gooch has had pretty good form. He's contended in a couple of the tournaments of late. And he's a guy that most people don't know, but he's a real solid player and he's been rising up the money list in the rankings. So at minus sort of a toss-up, I'm taking Gooch over DeChambeau. And then I think, the other one I have for today matchup is actually to win their group. And I don't know if you've noticed, whenever I have made golf picks, I always include a Canadian, just because, right?
Sure.
Canadian content. And so the battle to win their group is between Corey Connors and Alex Noren. And a lot of people going into this tournament like Noren as like a 50-1 kind of shot to win the whole thing. There's a lot of numbers that add up to success for Noren, both in the format and on this course. But Connors has been in very good form. Right. He's had a top 10. He faded a little bit at the Players Championship, but still had a really good result. I think top 25. This course suits ball strikers like both guys. And so this is a -110. So again, a coin toss. I'm going with the Canadian to win the coin toss matchup. Connors -110 over the Swede, Alex Noren.
And so, Jorey, just let our listeners know, like I'm looking at Bet365 and they got Taylor Gooch -125 over Bryson's +100.
Oh, so that line's changed because I looked at it an hour ago.
Is that where you're getting your lines from? Bet365?
I was looking at Bet365. Okay. So that's just changed like literally in the last hour.
It might have actually changed a minute ago when listeners heard that you were on it and they started slamming it because, I mean, you got the ability to move lines 20 cents.
Yeah, right. I think you've got things. I think you've got me confused with the other artist formerly known as Jorey Middlestadt. It's not me moving.
It might have been lines. A Jorey that actually had his name spelled properly who knew how to move the lines.
There aren't that many Joreys out there, right? How many do you know?
That's a good question. Maybe 2 or 3, more than I know Harley's.
Yeah, no, we both have uncommon names. In any case. Wow, I talked a lot there about tennis and golf, but that's what we're here to do. Hopefully give winning picks. And I've given out 6. That's by far a record for me. So hopefully I've given you some winners, especially on the tennis side, right? Because you cash one of those big money line dogs. You're doing very well. Before we leave, we always ask for listener involvement. You can email us, questions@theparleh.com. You can reach out to both of us on Twitter at Jorey Middle, at Sharp Edge Picks for Harley. And we apologize to a listener, Amy T from Parts Unknown. I don't know where Amy is from. But this came in a couple weeks ago and we missed it. And then we didn't really want to do it for the March Madness show. But it was a good question. I want you to address it, Harley. Okay. Here it is from Amy T. Hello. My question is, how much of sports betting is luck and how much of it is skilled thinking, math, and probability analysis? Again, how much of it is skilled thinking, math, and probability analysis? As a simple example, an over-under is set, like for an NBA player, I think it was the example. Over-under is set at 7.5 assists. What process should we use to make a good bet? Because on any given night, the player could have 6 or 8. Is there a smart bet in this scenario? Is there a smart bet under this scenario? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. My answer is short-term luck, anything can happen. But in the long term, it's all about skill. Knowing the value of each point and getting an extra 1 is the key to long-term success. I'm not a player's prop guy, but I'll turn it into a general NBA bet as my answer. In the NBA, we know the numbers right around the point spread land 4% of the time each, meaning a 4.5 point favorite wins by exactly 4 and exactly 5, 4% of the time each. So if you get the extra point, you're 54% on average. However, that's over a season or 2. Short term, it's like flipping coins and volatile. But you should get that 54% over time. It might be 52.5, maybe it's 55.5, factoring in the sharper side. For example, if you get an extra point on an ugly home dog, you're probably 55, 56. And if you get one on an overvalued Lakers team, you're probably 52, 53. But if you get that extra point, you're at least around the coveted 52.5% break even and likely a long-term winner closer to the 54%. Track your results carefully. In the short term, it's luck and noise. In the long term, it's skill. Tracking your results is really important, Jorey, and I think we should make a note. Maybe we should talk about it as a betting concept next week, how to track your results, what results look like over time, and how to do that the best way possible. But it's a great question.
Yeah, sorry, and I kind of screwed up part of the question. The over-under was set at 7.5, and the player average is 7, right? I missed part of that got cut off when I printed the question, right? So I know you've answered it, but what do you do in a situation like that when the number is 7.5 and the player average is 7? Or obviously it's based on their average, right?
It starts being based on their average, but then there's adjustments. If a player averages 7 assists a game and this over under is 7.5, it's not as simple as, well, the average 7, so just bet the under. I mean, maybe the over under in this game is 260 and the normal over under in an NBA game is 220. So there's going to be a lot more points and hence a lot more assists. Or maybe this team the team you're playing against doesn't know how to defend against power forwards. So you're going to get a lot of fast break points to the power forwards and they're going to slam it and you're going to get a lot of assists. There's a lot of adjustments you need to make. Player props is really, really, really complicated. I'm not a huge fan of betting them because they charge a lot more juice. And I've been on online forums where there's two guys I totally respect. And they'll be like, this line is off. Over 7.5 rebounds is the play. And another guy will be like, this line is off. Under 7.5. And they both have really, really good reasons. One of them might be, well, the guy's only averaging 6 and now it's 7.5. And the other guy will talk about the pace of play. And there's just so many complicated factors going in variable-wise day in, day out. I have no doubt if you have a good computer system that's really beating the books and a really good angle, that you might have figured out the secret sauce. I haven't, and that's why I usually stay away from those.
But staying on the player prop thing for a moment, I'm glad you talked about some professionals and how they look at it, right? And we've talked about this. Sometimes that's where you may find an edge. Right? Because the books are putting out so many bets now, so many things. There's only so many things they can analyze and dig deep. And so the point is, when you're looking at things like player props, you can look at the numbers as it relates to that player, right? What they average, or are they on a good run right now? Yeah, they average 7 assists, but in the last 5 games, right, they've been averaging 9 or 10. Right? There's a factor. To your point, though, look at the matchup that night, right? Both on an individual point guard is usually going to be the one who's going to average that kind of an assist total. What's the matchup against the other point guard? Have they played a lot against each other and or those teams? What is the current form of these teams? Like you said, maybe there's a big advantage at another position, right? Like a power forward or a center. And so, you've been reading the local papers and you can kind of see the game plan here, or from previous games. Let's say they're in the same division, right? So they play each other 4 times a year. And man, oh man, each time they play, the point guard is just pounding it into the center, right? For easy layups. And so their assist total is going to go up. So you have to look at the whole picture when you're looking at things like that. And so as part of your question, that is the process you're going to go through to make a good bet. And it's it's going to be a combination of numbers and other factors for that particular game that will help in your decision making.
And you haven't even addressed issues like back-to-backs and load management.
Right. And
if the backup point guard is injured, the starting point guard is going to play 45 minutes instead of 41. I mean, all these things have to be factored into making these good and bad bets.
Yeah. So, on any given night, there's still a million factors that can go into making a smart bet, and you still might lose.
Correct.
Because that's just the way it goes.
That's just the way it goes.
All right. Well, that'll do it for episode 10, Harley. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, one quick note. I know we're going to talk baseball next week.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that, but go ahead.
Looking forward to doing the preview. But something exciting to end off with. Jays fans, we're a co-favorite with the White Sox and even ahead of the Yankees to get to the World Series in the American League at 5-1. I think everybody in Toronto is super excited for this baseball season.
Oh, yeah.
And Vegas and offshore books are very bullish the Blue Jays as well.
So next week we are going to talk baseball. We'll have the Final Four, right, to discuss.
Yes, our timing is actually perfect because
we'll have both games
Final
ahead
Four
of us
games are
on
going to be
Saturday.
the next day. Correct.
Yeah. And we will also, time permitting, talk about the updated NFL futures, and we will have a gambling concept as well to discuss next week. And
I thought maybe we should talk about that tracking data and the idea of how to track your results. That's a good topic we can talk about.
Tracking your betting results, because we have another one too that we've had on the back burner that we'll get to as well.
Sounds good.
All right. So on the way out, hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I'm sure Harley did as well. As we say each and every week, for Harley, I'm Jorey. May all your picks be winners, ours too. Talk to you next week on the Parleh Sports Betting Show on Canada's Sports Betting Network, otherwise known as the Parleh. Good luck and enjoy.
Take care. Have a good day, Jorey.
Thanks, you too.